good friend Mike Burch from Five on Your Side does stories regularly about people who make a difference. And he did one recently on Langford Cunningham, who hosts a podcast called Blind City. And Langford focuses on helping people in many ways. And he joins Art and me online today. Langford, thank you for joining us.
Oh, no problem. Thank you.
Well, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I had a unique experience. I was working for St. Louis County Juvenile Detention for 15 years. Enjoyed it, working with at-risk youth. And at the same time, I was enjoying life. But I kind of was enjoying it too much. I was in the strip clubs late at night, in the bars late at night. I was an alcoholic. And at the same time, I had a disease in my body called glaucoma. And my father went blind from glaucoma. But at that time, just like the youth today not wearing masks, I thought I was invincible. I thought nothing couldn't happen to me because I had the money, the cars, the house in West County. I thought life was great. But I never had a personal relationship with God. So I was giving all my grace to materialism. And then one day I woke up one morning and my eyes were bloodshot red. And normally I thought, I was an alcoholic. I was like, maybe I'm drinking too much. Why my eyes are bloodshot red? So they were bloodshot red for a couple of days, and I went to an ophthalmologist, and he looked at my eyes, and he scooped the chair back, and he looked at me. He said, "Do you have glaucoma in your family?" I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "You have glaucoma, and your pressure is like 45. We got to rush you into surgery." And from that moment, the room started spinning around, and I went through 31 surgeries. And they couldn't save my vision. And I was in denial. I started being bitter. I started being angry. And when I went back to the house and the cars I had, I couldn't see them no more. All the materialism that I had grace for and I was worshiping, I couldn't see no more. And I became very angry with God. And then I started having suicide thoughts. And then I tried to kill myself 3 times in one day. I tried to hang myself for the shower, and I wasn't successful. I tried to put a gun in my mouth, pulled the trigger, wasn't successful. And then I reached out to a friend I knew who sold drugs. I was going to say, man, bring me some pills. I'm going to overdose. Well, on his way to my house, he got pulled over by the state troopers. And I fell to the floor, and I'm like, God, what's going on? And I heard a voice, and he said, you have 2 options. You can either go the other way, and I'm going to take my hands off you, or you can either walk towards me. And that's when I gave my life to Christ.
So
And Blind City was created from me overcoming suicide.
So you lost your vision like a year ago?
Yes.
And you have a bachelor's degree in criminal justice. You've worked as a counselor at a state prison. You've worked as a deputy juvenile officer. You've coordinated projects for juvenile detention and lesson plans for juvenile delinquents. What will we hear on your podcast, Blind City?
Well, Blind City, when people hear Blind City is not dealing with people who are blind like myself. It's dealing with the condition we are in America right now. We are blind to crime, racism, and poverty right now in our communities. So I use my platform to have people come on and express their pain, what they're going through. We are the therapy for the streets to bring some of the tension down. Maybe that can cut down on some of the violence. Maybe if I can talk to an at-risk youth or anybody who may be going through suicide thoughts, I can stop them to start thinking how valuable they are to life. Or a person who has a gun and he's mad at somebody up the street and he wants to shoot them, and if I can just get them to talk to me and get them to start thinking another way to get help. That's why Blind City podcast was created, and that's what it does for the community, to get everybody to start talking to one another. Because the internet, they're not talking. We're not communicating. It's not effective no more.
Langford, since much of your life has intersected with at-risk youth, I'm wondering if we could get your thoughts on the issue of gun violence in St. Louis, which is at a record-setting pace this year. And many people have made the observation that if enough young people grow up without hope in violence and impoverished circumstances where schools are substandard, there's a whole host of social issues that come into play. What we're seeing now in St. Louis and other cities is one of the end results. What are you seeing and hearing from the young people that you come in contact with?
Well, that's a good question, Art, and thank you. I did 15 years in juvenile detention. I did a documentary in 2008 called Hood Chronicles, and I was sending out the warning and the alert to people that, hey, if you look at these crime statistics, and you can Google this, 2008 crime statistics in St. Louis, the robberies, the assaults, and the homicides were up tremendously. And at that time, when I was in the streets shooting a documentary, I told the chief of police at that time for St. Louis City, I won't mention his name, I said, you need to be paying attention to this. I think the gang situation in St. Louis is going to be out of control in 5 to 6, 7 years. He laughed at me. He said, we got it under control. There you go right there. We have to pay attention to these kids. We have to be alert on what they're going through and how they're dealing with things. We have a lot of fathers that are not inside their homes from the prison, from the school to prisoner pipeline. We have no fathers. You have a lot of single mothers raising these children inside these war zones where the gangs have taken over. And they can't snitch. That's like putting a sheep in a lion's den. Because the man is the provider, the protector of these households, but he's not there. So these women are being the father and the mother to these children, and they trapped in these violent streets where all this chaos is going on. I just think the police and the politicians need to come together and come up with an effective strategy where they can create a relationship with these youth in the streets, because there's a big gap where there's no relationship. They're not communicating.
Well, Langford, we're coming up. We're watching the clock here. Thank you so much for joining Art and me. I hope we get a chance to talk to you again. The podcast is Blind City Podcast, and Langford Cunningham is the host. We wish you the best, and we look forward to talking to you again, Langford.
Well, I got a question for you and Art, because both of you are two legends in the St. Louis community, and it's a privilege to me to be on your platform. But I have a question.
Okay.
You know who's the most dangerous man in the world is?
Who?
A blind man with vision. Thank you. Reba Dirty.
Oh, you got jokes this morning.
Thank you, Langford. We'll talk to you again soon.
All right. Blind City, the podcast. Blind